Yo, JBlanked here. How to build your first FlipperZero app the easy way, part 2. Now, before we begin, make sure you have completed the steps from part 1, where we set up the environment, cloned the Hello World C++ project, and reviewed the app structure. And although it is not required to follow along, I highly recommend checking out Derek Jamison's Flipper app tutorials. He breaks down installing the Flipper SDK in VS Code, which will certainly help you out with debugging and programming in the future. Derek has helped a ton with Flipper HTTP, apps, and advice. He's actually who I learned from to create apps and understand how to use GitHub better. In part 2, we're going to learn how to connect to Wi-Fi, send an HTTP request, and then process the response. For this video, you will need the Hello World project from part 1, but also an ESP32, Raspberry Pi Pico, or BW16 flashed with Flipper HTTP. I released a 3-minute quick flash tutorial a few days back on this channel, which will get your board ready for today's video. By the end of part 2, you will understand how to manage HTTP requests within your app. If your board is ready and you completed part 1, let's start by opening up Visual Studio Code and the Hello World project. Now, I've made a slight update to the repository since part 1. So let's open up the terminal in Visual Studio Code by using Control-Shift backtick, or by going to the terminal menu and clicking New Terminal. Next, run the command git pull, which will fetch and commit the latest changes to your app. And that's it. We're all set. Now, as we reviewed in part 1, the settings folder contains the settings class. I have already added SSID and password text inputs, and below there is a connect button. On your FlipperZero, type in your SSID and password. Then with your board connected to the Flipper, hit the connect button. The board will save those credentials and connect to your network. Please note, unless you are using a BW16 or ESP32C5, you won't be able to connect to a 5GHz network. Now, back into Visual Studio Code, we'll mainly work within the run folder in class. But let's open up the app.hpp to start with. We'll be using the HTTP request async method today, but I'll also break down the HTTP request method, which is the synchronous version. If you're newer to coding, just understand that the synchronous version will freeze the screen and inputs until the HTTP request is completed. The async version, short for asynchronous, will simply return true if the request was initiated, and then it's up to us to periodically check if the request is finished. And although the async version is a bit more to integrate, it is the preferred method and will give your users a better experience. Let's take a quick look behind the scenes in the app.cpp. Simply put, the synchronous request starts the request, checks every 100 milliseconds if it is finished, and then returns the result as a string. If we scroll down, the async version starts the request and just returns true. Note, the async method has a save location parameter, which is the file name we want to put our request data in. As Flipper HTTP receives data, it will save it to that file. We only need to pass the file name like response.txt since the full file path is created for us. All right, enough explaining. Let's get to it. We're going to send an HTTP request to the useless facts API. In the run folder, let's open up run.cpp. And let's first edit the update input method. We're going to make it so whenever the user presses the center or OK button, it will initiate our request. So let's add else if event dash key equals input key OK. And then we're just going to write initiate HTTP request. Save. And then set up our request by adding hello world app, cast app, and then our actual request app.http request async request.text, and then the URL and now let's build the app with UFBT to ensure there are no errors. Perfect. Before we launch, let's update the update draw method to say click OK equals send HTTP request instead of hello world run, and then save. Now let's launch the app using UFBT launch. And let me open up QFlipper. Now let's click on run to switch to our run view. Now if we click the center button, the request will be initiated. It only takes a second or two to finish, so if we navigate to our SD card within the apps data, hello world, data, and if we download and open it, we should see the response from the API. Now let's go back into our code and make some edits to show the user the response. Let's go to run.hpp this time and create an enum called request state to track state management. Type def enum. We want request error equals -1. Request not started. Request initiated. Request receiving. And then request received. Request state. And then add a member called request state. Now let's open up run.cpp and make some edits to our request so our request is only sent once and we handle errors if needed. And now we'll edit update draw to change the display message based on our request state. I'll type all this out and then briefly explain. Okay, first we set our request state variable based on the Flipper HTTP request state. Then we display messages based on that state until the request is finished. Once it's finished, we load the data from the saved file and use our JSON library to fetch the text key from the response. Lastly, we do some quick word wrapping so the user can see the fact on the screen. Now, let's launch the app on our Flipper and wrap up part 2. Instead of here, leave this and set the state. Or if we do, go back and do and now launch. And now let's click on Run to switch to our Run view. And when we click the center button again, the display message will update and we see our response once it's finished. That's it for today. We took the skeleton Hello World C++ app from part 1 and turned it into an app that fetches facts from an online API. For more videos like this, make sure to subscribe, and while you're at it, hit that thumbs up button. I'm JBlanked. Until next time, peace.